In the quiet churn of American history, the year 1972 marked a strange kind of calm. The Vietnam War dragged on. Inflation pressed on families, and President Nixon's administration wrestled with a growing sense of distrust from the public. Yet among the clutter of political headlines and social shifts, something seemingly small was happening at the United States Mint, a continuation of a tradition that had started less than a decade earlier. The Kennedy half dollar, first introduced in 1964, just months after John F. Kennedy's tragic assassination, had become a staple of American coinage. By 1972, it was no longer minted in silver for general circulation, its metallic composition reduced to a copper-nickel-clad structure. Millions were produced that year. But somewhere within that enormous batch, a rare mistake was quietly born. The Kennedy half dollar was meant to honor a president who had become a symbol of American optimism, leadership, and loss. Its obverse featured a bold portrait of JFK, designed with precision and reverence by Gilroy Roberts. On the reverse, the heraldic eagle carried the symbolism of American strength and resolve, crafted by Frank Asparo. Minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, the 1972 issues were supposed to follow strict standards. But standards often falter in the face of pressure, and hidden within this sea of precision, one peculiar coin found its way into the world. For years, no one noticed. It moved through hands, maybe across coasts, into vending machines, coin jars, parking meters. Its difference was subtle, masked behind a familiar face. Then one afternoon, in the spring of 1999, a retired Air Force mechanic named Ernest Langston, now a part-time coin hobbyist in Arizona, stumbled upon it at a flea market. It sat quietly in a pile of loose change at the bottom of a box filled with old baseball cards, bottle caps, and rusted trinkets. Ernest wasn't even looking for coins that day, but something about the half dollar made him pause. It was worn, yes, but the relief of Kennedy's face seemed strangely distorted, thicker along the neckline, slightly offset. The reverse caught even more of his attention. The eagle's beak, unusually doubled. Not sharp enough to be a die crack. Not misaligned enough to be obvious. Just off. The United States of America script arched strangely, almost as if it had been restruck. He weighed it using his portable scale, 11.34 grams, standard. But under his loupe, something more unsettling emerged. Tiny raised ridges, machine doubling? Perhaps. But it seemed deeper, as if the coin had been struck twice with a slight rotation. The mint mark D was unusually low on the field, closer to the edge than it should have been. Ernest knew errors existed in other years. He'd heard the 1964 accented hair variety and the elusive 1974 D double die. But he'd never heard of a major 1972 error. Not like this. He took it home, spent hours cross-referencing other specimens, and even consulted archived images from a mint. Nothing matched. The suspicion that this might be something rare grew into conviction. He submitted it to a grading service. The wait felt endless, every day stretching with the weight of possibility. When the results came back, Ernest stood in stunned silence. The coin was authenticated as a 1972 Kennedy half dollar with a dramatic double die obverse, previously undocumented at the time. The doubling, particularly on the "In God We Trust" motto and the date, was crisp under magnification. Even more intriguing was the positioning of the mint mark, which raised questions about whether the die had been altered or misaligned before striking. The grading company listed it as -58 Australian dollars, almost uncirculated, but what it lacked in mint state perfection, it made up for in sheer uniqueness. News traveled fast through the numismatic community. Ernest's discovery became the center of speculation. Was this a one-off? A freak accident? Or were more out there, hiding in plain sight? Theories sprang up. Some believed the die had been used for a short period before being replaced. Others suggested it was a rogue engraver's silent protest, though that seemed more myth than reality. Regardless, the coin's impact was immediate. Offers began rolling in. At first, modest $600, $900, maybe $1,200. Then, as experts validated the error and recognized its significance, the numbers climbed. One prominent dealer offered $3,800. Ernest declined. By 2005, similar coins began appearing, one in Ohio, another in rural Kentucky. Not many, but enough to suggest a limited run. None were in better condition than Ernest's original find. That coin, now lovingly dubbed the Arizona die twist, had become the cornerstone of an emerging category, early 70s Kennedy half-dollar errors. At auction, prices for comparable pieces began to soar. A VF 30 example sold for $2,100. An EF 45 drew over $3,400. But Ernest's coin remained unmatched, not just in grade but in provenance. Collectors knew its story. They knew the man who found it. But what made the error so compelling wasn't just its rarity. It was the way it quietly challenged assumptions about the Kennedy series. This wasn't a minting era known for dramatic blunders. The 1970s, especially for clad half-dollars, had been largely stable. The mint had tightened operations after the chaos of the mid-60s. That's why the 1972 doubling came as such a surprise. It broke the narrative of perfection and hinted that even in moments of perceived control, the unexpected could emerge. In time, another twist surfaced. A researcher uncovered internal mint documentation from late 1971 indicating that a batch of dies prepared for Denver production had been flagged for misalignment and retooling. The memo was brief, easily overlooked, but it coincided with the time frame of the error coins. It seemed likely that some of those faulty dies made it into active use before being caught and replaced. That document became the missing piece. It linked the error not just to a coin, but to a moment in the mint's operational history. A bureaucratic oversight that allowed something unintended and now treasured to slip through. Today, the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar error continues to evolve in value and perception. While not as widely known as other error coins, its legend grows among serious collectors. It's a coin that doesn't shout but whispers, a subtle doubling here, an off-kilter mint mark there. Its story is one of patience, attention, and serendipity. Not every coin becomes a legend overnight. Some take decades, hiding under dust, waiting for the right eyes to see them. And Ernest Langston? He still owns the coin, refuses to sell it, keeps it in a protective case above his workbench, next to a faded photo of Air Force days and a set of worn tools. He's received offers exceeding $15,000. Some say higher. He just smiles, because for him, the coin isn't just rare metal. It's proof that extraordinary stories still hide in ordinary places. That history, even in miniature, can surprise you when you least expect it. And that sometimes the smallest imperfections create the most enduring legacies. The year 1979 marked 15 years since the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and the United States Mint continued its steady production of the Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that had become a symbol of remembrance and national mourning. The Denver Mint facility hummed with activity that year, processing thousands of planchets daily through their sophisticated coining presses. Workers monitored the rhythmic stamping of dies against silver-clad blanks, creating what would become millions of half-dollars destined for circulation across America. During the summer months of 1979, Mint employees noticed nothing unusual about their production runs. The Denver facility had established itself as one of the most reliable minting operations in the country, with quality control measures that caught the majority of errors before coins entered the distribution stream. The Kennedy half-dollar dies have been carefully maintained, their surfaces polished and inspected regularly to ensure crisp, clear strikes on every coin produced. However, deep within the mechanical processes of the Denver Mint, something extraordinary was taking shape. The intricate dance between die and planchet, repeated thousands of times each day, was about to create an anomaly that would remain hidden for decades. The coining presses operated under tremendous pressure, forcing metal to flow into every crevice of the die design. But on certain occasions, the alignment between upper and lower dies shifted by microscopic amounts. Margaret Thompson had been collecting coins for 37 years when she walked into the small numismatic shop in Portland, Oregon, on a crisp October morning in 2003. She possessed the keen eye of a seasoned collector, someone who could spot double dies, off-center strikes, and die cracks from across a crowded dealer's table. That morning, she wasn't searching for anything specific, merely browsing through boxes of circulated Kennedy half-dollars that the shop owner had acquired from a recent estate sale. The coins appeared ordinary at first glance. Most showed typical wear patterns from circulation, their surfaces dulled by decades of handling. Margaret methodically examined each piece, checking dates and mint marks with the practiced efficiency of someone who had discovered treasure hiding in plain sight before. She reached the bottom of the second box when her fingers encountered a coin that felt different. The weight seemed correct, but something about its appearance made her pause. Under the shop's fluorescent lighting, the 1979 D. Kennedy half-dollar appeared unremarkable. Kennedy's profile faced left as expected, the familiar inscription, "In God We Trust," curved along the upper rim, and the date, 1979, appeared clearly in the lower right quadrant. Margaret almost placed it back in the box, but decades of collecting had taught her to trust her instincts. She requested a magnifying glass from the shop owner. What she discovered through that magnifying lens would challenge everything she thought she knew about modern mint errors. The coin's reverse side displayed the presidential seal as designed, but careful examination revealed something that shouldn't exist on a 1979 Kennedy half-dollar. Faint traces of additional lettering appeared beneath the primary design elements, ghostly impressions that seemed to belong to an entirely different coin series. That Margaret's heart rate quickened as she adjusted the magnifying glass, trying to decipher the mysterious underlying design. The additional elements were subtle, barely visible without magnification, but their presence was undeniable. She had stumbled upon what appeared to be a double denomination error, where a coin had been struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely. The shop owner, intrigued by Margaret's intense scrutiny of a seemingly common coin, leaned over to examine her discovery. Together, they identified traces of what appeared to be quarter-dollar design elements beneath the half-dollar striking. The implications were staggering. If authentic, this represented one of the rarest types of mint errors possible, a coin that had somehow received strikes from dies of two different denominations. Margaret purchased the coin for $15, the standard price for a circulated Kennedy half-dollar. She drove home with trembling hands, her mind racing through the possibilities. Double denomination errors were legendary in numismatic circles, with only a handful of confirmed examples known to exist. The most famous case involved a 1943 Lincoln cent struck over a 1943 Mercury dime, which had sold for thousands of dollars at auction. Over the following weeks, Margaret conducted extensive research into her discovery. She photographed the coin under various lighting conditions, documenting every subtle detail of the underlying design elements. The faint traces of the quarter-dollar's eagle became more apparent under certain angles, and she could discern portions of United States of America beneath the half-dollar's inscriptions. Authentication proved challenging. Margaret contacted 3 different coin authentication services, each expressing skepticism about her claims. Double denomination errors were so rare that many experts had never encountered one in person. The subtlety of the underlying design made definitive identification difficult, and Margaret faced months of uncertainty about her coin's authenticity and potential value. The breakthrough came when Margaret connected with Dr. Richard Hernandez, a metallurgist who specialized in mint error analysis. Using advanced imaging techniques typically reserved for forensic investigations, Dr. Hernandez confirmed that Margaret's coin exhibited characteristics consistent with a genuine double denomination error. The metal flow patterns, strike pressures, and die wear indicators all supported the conclusion that this half-dollar had been struck on a quarter planchet that had previously received a partial strike from quarter dies. Word of Margaret's discovery spread through numismatic networks. Collector interest intensified dramatically. The coin's estimated value began climbing from hundreds to thousands of dollars. Auction houses contacted Margaret, eager to feature the error in their prestigious sales. The numismatic press published articles about the find, dubbing it one of the most significant mint error discoveries of the decade. The coin's journey through various authentication stages revealed additional layers of complexity. Advanced spectroscopic analysis confirmed that the planchet composition matched neither standard half-dollar nor quarter specifications, suggesting it had been created from experimental alloy batches used during the mint's transition between different metal compositions in the late 1970s. This revelation added another dimension to the error's significance. Not only was it a double denomination strike, but it had been created using metal that shouldn't have existed in the regular production stream. The combination of errors made Margaret's coin virtually unique in the numismatic world. By 2008, conservative estimates placed the coin's value at $35,000. Aggressive projections suggested it could reach $60,000 at auction, particularly if competitive bidding developed between institutional collectors and museums. The coin had transformed from a $15 purchase into one of the most valuable modern mint errors known to exist. However, the most shocking revelation was yet to come. During final preparation for a major auction, high-resolution photography revealed something that had escaped previous examinations. Hidden within the intricate details of Kennedy's hair were microscopic dye scratches that formed an almost perfect replica of the Denver Mint's quality control inspector signature from 1979. This discovery suggested that the error hadn't occurred randomly, but had been deliberately created or at least noticed and approved by Mint personnel. The implications were enormous. If true, it meant that someone within the Denver Mint had either intentionally created this error or had chosen to allow it to enter circulation despite knowing its unusual nature. Investigation into Mint record from 1979 revealed that the Denver facility had experienced several equipment malfunctions during the summer months, including problems with dye alignment mechanisms and planchet feeding systems. These mechanical issues could have created the perfect conditions for a double denomination error to occur, but they didn't explain the presence of the inspector's signature marks. The mystery deepened when researchers discovered that the quality control inspector whose signature appeared on the coin had retired from the Mint in 1980 and had become a prominent coin collector himself. When contacted, he initially denied any knowledge of the error coin, but later admitted that he had occasionally allowed interesting error coins to pass through quality control as gifts to the collecting community. That Margaret's $15 investment had evolved into something far more valuable than money could measure. She possessed not just a rare Mint error, but a piece of numismatic history that bridged the gap between official Mint operations and the passionate world of coin collecting. The coin represented a moment when institutional protocols bent to accommodate the human desire to preserve and share extraordinary discoveries. The final authenticated value exceeded all previous estimates when the coin sold at auction for $93,000, establishing it as one of the most expensive modern Mint errors ever sold. Margaret donated a portion of the proceeds to establish a scholarship fund for students pursuing careers in numismatics, ensuring that her extraordinary discovery would continue inspiring future generations of collectors.